If the Yiddish word for sand is zamt with the M sound, why is it zamt with an N sound in German? And for that matter, why is it sand in English also with an N? Is Yiddish just weird? Believe it or not, the original word that gave rise to the Yiddish zamt, German zamt, and English sand was samd. But that cluster of M and D can be difficult to say. To pronounce the M sound, you close your lips and let your voice travel through your nose. To pronounce the D sound, you put the tip of your tongue somewhere behind your teeth. The exact location can vary by language, and you let your voice travel through your mouth. Quickly switching between the two positions can be difficult. One way to make it easier is to pronounce an N sound instead of an M sound. The N sound is still voiced through the nose, so it sounds very similar, but it's also pronounced with the tongue behind the teeth, like the D sound, which eliminates the need to move your mouth bit so much. Thus, samd becomes sand. Samd, samd, they practically sound the same. In Yiddish and in German, there was also a separate sound change that turned the S at the beginning of the word into a Z sound. This type of sound change, where one sound changes to be pronounced closer to the sound next to it, is very common cross-linguistically. There are actually several other Yiddish-German word pairs that have an M sound in Yiddish and an N sound in German, and these may or may not be explained by the same phenomenon. I'll get into the why of all of this at the end of the video. But first, some examples of words that have an M sound in Yiddish and the N sound in German. Firstly, the word Boden, meaning attic. The German equivalent word, deriving from the same root, or cognate, is Boden, with a final N, and means floor, or ground. It can also mean attic in German, but is rare. The original meaning was ground, or floor, and later came to mean attic. The idea being that an attic is the upper floor of a house. Now at this point, we have to remember that English is a Germanic language. As such, English also has an equivalent word deriving from the same root, or cognate, and that word is bottom. The ground is what's at the bottom. Yiddish has Boydum with a final M, English has bottom, also with a final M, and German has Boden with a final N. As an interesting aside, Yiddish also has the word Boden, meaning ground, or floor, as in the bottom surface of something, and that's a loan word for modern German, making Boydum and Boden doublets of the same historical word, but with very different meanings. In New York Hasidic Yiddish, Boden is mostly a literary word. And to clean said Boydum, or even Boden, you may use a Besen, or broom. In German, a broom is Besen, with an N at the end. Believe it or not, English also has a cognate with this word, and that's the archaic word Besem. Here again, notice how German is the only one with the final N instead of M. Speaking of Besem, Besem. Besem isn't really used anymore and means a person's chest. It does, however, come up more frequently in the word Besentasche, meaning breast pocket. The equivalent word in German is Busen, though in German it's mostly used to mean breasts. The English equivalent is bosom. Notice again how German is the only one that ends the word in N. For one final example, Fudum. This word means thread, and the German equivalent is Faden. This word also has a cognate in English, but is probably almost impossible to guess without any background knowledge. That word is fathom. Yup. The primary historical meaning of fathom is that of the measurement. In German, Faden can mean both thread and fathom, the measurement. But in Yiddish, it only means thread. There seems to be no consensus as to how Fudum or Faden came to mean a thread, so I'll just leave it at that. So now, why did all these words in German have their final M sound turn to N? This is part of a general trend that happened in German in the 17th century, where words ending in unstressed had the endings turned to un. But you'll notice something else. All these words had a D sound or Z sound just before the M sound. The Z sound is also pronounced with the tongue behind the teeth, just like the D sound. So is that what happened here? Just like how samd turned into samd? I couldn't find any sources that say that the D and Z sounds had anything to do with this change, but all the words I could find that went through the sound change had that D or Z right before the M. So I will not say definitively that this is the reason why it happened, but these words definitely come to mind when I think of the change from samd to summed. By the way, there are actually many more examples where, like with Fudum and Fathom, or Boydum and Bottom, where the Yiddish and English cognates came to mean very different things. It would be interesting to look into some of these sometime. But that's it for now.